My name is lElena Carter. I'm 34 from Boston, Massachusetts. Losing my 10-year-old son, Michael, shattered me beyond words. I trusted my parents to stand by me during the darkest moment of my life, to hold me when I couldn't breathe. But they skipped his funeral. Instead, weeks later, they appeared at my doorstep, not with comfort, not with love, but with demands. They wanted Michael's $850,000 trust fund to finance my sister's lavish wedding. That betrayal cut deeper than death itself. This is the story of grief, greed, and a revenge they never saw coming. Backhand index pointing right, watch till the end. This betrayal shows how greed can destroy blood ties forever. The morning of my son's funeral felt unreal. The world outside still moved, cars passed, birds sang, while my world lay in a coffin too small for a boy who deserved life. I stood alone in the front pew, my heart heavy with grief, waiting for my parents to walk in and hold me the way they did when I was a child. But the doors never opened. They never came. Later, I learned they had chosen to attend a wedding showcase with my younger sister, Vanessa. They called it too painful to watch a child's burial. But somehow, champagne toasts and wedding planners weren't too painful. I wept through the night, my body trembling from grief and rage. Weeks passed and silence hung between us. Until one evening, a knock echoed through my apartment. It was my parents. They looked polished, cheerful, like nothing had happened. My mother placed her manicured hand on mine and said, almost casually, "Elena, about Michael's trust fund. It would mean the world to Vanessa if we could use it for her wedding. You don't need the money now. You don't have a family anymore." Her words burned through my chest. My father added, "It's what Michael would have wanted for family to stay united." I nearly collapsed. That trust fund wasn't theirs to take. It was for Michael's future, his education, his dreams. Now they wanted to turn it into chandeliers, champagne fountains, and a designer gown for Vanessa. In that moment, my grief hardened into something else, something cold, sharp, and unyielding. I promised myself, if they valued vanity over my son's memory, I would make sure the world knew who they truly were. This wasn't just about money. This was about betrayal, about a mother stripped of dignity, about grandparents who chose greed over love. And if they thought they could bury their cruelty under wedding flowers and golden rings, they had no idea what storm was coming their way. The night after my confrontation with my parents, I sat in silence on the porch of my small Virginia home. My son's laughter used to fill these walls, and now only echoes of grief remained. I had barely finished paying for his funeral, yet instead of support, my parents had chosen greed. 2 days later, my younger sister, Emily, showed up at my door. She was glowing in her expensive engagement ring, her nails freshly polished, as though grief had never touched her. "Lena," she said with forced sweetness, "Mom and Dad told me you're holding onto the trust fund. You know it could change my life. My wedding is going to be the event of the year." Her words struck me like a blade. The fund wasn't meant for her fairy tale party. It was my son's legacy. I clenched my fists. "Emily, that money is all I have left of Matthew. It's his future, even if he never got to live it. How can you even think of asking me for it?" Emily's face hardened. The mask of sisterly concern vanished. "You don't understand. Everyone expecting this wedding to be perfect. Without that money, I'll be humiliated. You've always been selfish, Lena." Selfish? The word rang in my head like a cruel joke. I had given up everything for my family, even moved back to Virginia after my husband left me, just to be close to them. And now, they dared to call me selfish. That night, I opened my son's memory box, the tiny shoes, the drawings he made, the last birthday card he gave me. Tears streamed down my face as my grief hardened into something sharper. Revenge wasn't a word I had ever used for myself. But in that moment, I knew, if my family saw me as selfish, I would show them what true selfishness looked like. They wanted a wedding. Fine. But I would make sure the truth about their greed was revealed where it hurt the most, under the brightest lights, in front of everyone they wanted to impress. And Emily's perfect wedding would be the stage. The wedding preparations became the talk of the town. Emily's face was everywhere, on invitation cards, on social media, in whispered conversations at the church. She flaunted every detail, from the imported flowers to the designer gown, as if the entire event was a royal coronation. Meanwhile, my parents avoided me unless it was to pressure me. Dad's voice on the phone was cold. "Lena, stop being difficult. That money isn't doing anyone any good just sitting there. Hand it over for your sister's happiness." My sister's happiness? What about my son's dignity? One evening, I drove past the wedding venue, an old manor house glittering with chandeliers and white roses. My heart burned with anger. They wanted me silenced, erased, forgotten like my son's memory. But if they thought I'd stay quiet, they didn't know me at all. That night, I sat down at my desk and opened Matthew's trust documents. The money wasn't just a number. It was a promise, a symbol of a life cut short. I realized then that if my family was so desperate to take it, maybe it was time the world knew what kind of people they truly were. I began gathering evidence, texts from Emily, voicemails from my parents, even financial records that showed how they had tried to pressure me. Every cruel word, every selfish demand became part of my collection. But revenge isn't just about proof, it's about timing. And what better stage than Emily's perfect wedding? I imagined it clearly. The vows paused, the music silenced, the whispers growing. A truth unveiled in front of every guest, every friend, every person who thought our family was picture perfect. My parents had taken my son's death and turned it into a transaction. And soon, everyone would see their greed exposed. For the first time in months, I felt something other than grief. It was power. I folded Matthew's little drawing of a son, his last picture, and placed it in my purse. It would remind me why I was doing this. My son would not be forgotten, and Emily's wedding would never be the fairy tale she dreamed of. The countdown had begun. The morning of Emily's wedding arrived with skis so bright it felt almost mocking. Guests filled the grand manor house, their laughter spilling across the decorated gardens. Everyone wore smiles, but behind those polished grins, I carried a storm. I arrived in a simple black dress, not to blend in, but to remind them all that grief was still my companion. My parents spotted me across the crowd, their smiles faltering. Mother leaned in, whispering through clenched teeth, "Don't cause a scene, Lena. This is Emily's day. Keep your bitterness to yourself." Bitterness, if only she knew what I had prepared. As the ceremony began, Emily floated down the aisle in her expensive gown, her arm hooked with Dad's. The guests gasped, phones flashed, and the music swelled. To them, it was perfect. But I saw something else, a show bought with betrayal. When the priest asked if anyone had reason to object, the hall fell silent. My chest tightened. This was my moment. My heart pounded so hard it drowned out the violins. I rose slowly, every eye locking on me. The whispers began, some shocked, some thrilled at the drama. Emily's smile froze. "I do have something to say," I began, my voice steady, though my hands trembled. "This wedding, this celebration of love, has been built on the ashes of my son's memory." Gasps rippled through the guests. Emily's face went pale. I reached into my bag and pulled out printed messages, texts where Emily and my parents schemed about Matthew's trust fund. The words were brutal. "She doesn't need it anymore. It will save us from embarrassment. The wedding must be flawless." I held them high for all to see. While I buried my son, my own family plotted to steal his future for this circus. Is this the kind of love we're celebrating today? The room erupted, shocked murmurs, angry glares, some guests even standing. Emily tried to speak, but her voice cracked, and Dad's face turned a deep shade of red. For once, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel silenced. I felt Matthew beside me, his memory burning bright. And the fairy tale Emily had dreamed of was beginning to unravel. The day finally came when I couldn't hold back any longer. For weeks, my parents had been pestering me, calling, texting, even showing up at my house uninvited. Each time, their words cut deeper than the last. They accused me of being selfish, of dishonoring the family, of putting money before family happiness. But the truth was, they weren't after happiness. They were after control. I decided enough was enough. I invited them over, determined to end this once and for all. My sister came too, dressed like the princess she always believed herself to be, her eyes sparkling with entitlement. As they sat in my living room, my father wasted no time. "You've kept us waiting long enough. That money doesn't belong to you, it's family money. Your sister's wedding must be celebrated in style. Do the right thing." I looked at him, then at my mother, who nodded silently as if his words were gospel. My sister smirked, already assuming victory. I took a deep breath and finally spoke, my voice steady but firm. "You think I owe you something. You think my son's legacy is just a bank account waiting to be spent. But let me remind you, this money was his. It was meant for his future, for his life. Not for a party, not for flowers, not for a wedding dress, for him." My mother's eyes narrowed. "He's gone and we must move on. Don't be cruel." "Cruel?" I snapped, my voice rising for the first time. "Do you know what's cruel? Cruel is skipping your grandson's funeral because you didn't want to ruin your mood. Cruel is turning your back on me when I was drowning in grief. Cruel is coming here now, not with love, not with comfort, but with demands." The room fell silent. My father's face flushed red, while my sister shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "You want the truth," I continued. "You don't deserve a cent of his trust fund, and I will never give it to you. That money will remain where it belongs, in my son's name as a reminder of him, not as fuel for your greed." For the first time, they had no words. My father's jaw tightened, my mother's eyes filled with something that looked like rage or maybe shame. And my sister, her smirk faded, replaced by the realization that her dream wedding wasn't coming from my son's memory. I had finally drawn the line, and I wasn't stepping back. After that confrontation, silence filled the room like a heavy storm. My parents looked at me as if I had betrayed them, when in reality, it was the other way around. My father clenched his fists, my mother shook her head in disappointment, and my sister crossed her arms, clearly furious that her perfect wedding dream was slipping away. My father finally broke the silence. "You'll regret this. Families don't survive without loyalty. You're tearing us apart." I met his eyes without fear. "No, Dad. You tore this family apart when you chose convenience over compassion, when you skipped your grandson's funeral for a party. Loyalty works both ways, and you gave me none when I needed it most." My mother tried again, her voice dripping with guilt-tripping sweetness. "We raised you, gave you everything. This is how you repay us, by holding on to money that means nothing now." I felt my chest tighten, but I stood firm. "You're wrong. It means everything. It's the last piece of my son I have left. It's not just numbers in a bank account, it's his memory, his future that was stolen. And I'll protect it with everything I have." My sister, frustrated, slammed her hand on the table. "You're being selfish. Do you know how embarrassing it is for me? My friends expect a grand wedding. Everyone will laugh if I don't have one." I stared at her, stunned by her words. "Do you even hear yourself? My child died, and all you care about is whether your wedding looks fancy enough for Instagram. Shame on you." The room grew colder. None of them spoke. Their silence told me everything I needed to know. They weren't here for me or my son, they were here for themselves. I stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. "This discussion is over. Don't come here again asking for that trust fund. It belongs to my son, and it will stay in his name, untouched. If you can't accept that, then maybe we don't have a family left to hold on to." As they left my house, slamming the door behind them, I felt both broken and free. Broken, because I realized I had lost not only my son but also the family I once trusted. Free, because for the first time, I chose my son's memory over their manipulation. And in that choice, I found strength.